There is some serious microphone issues to start. Now we're back. Now we're ready. Good morning, everybody. Thanks again for joining the live stream podcast here on the RAS Picks YouTube channel, also airing on Apple and Spotify shortly after as well. In this episode, we're going to look at how Sharp Bettors have been betting the draft so far at Circa Sports, the biggest sports book in Las Vegas. They opened their NFL draft odds yesterday, and we've seen quite a bit of disagreement in where they posted the prices. A little bit of movement on a lot of the players, some of them with a lot of movement. So I'm going to break down how every single guy has been posted, every single guy has moved, and get you a little bit of an update from how the biggest sports book in Las Vegas is posting and booking the draft so far. We'll go through each guy one by one and get you a quick update on what is going on. Good to see some familiar faces in the live chat as well. Brandon Faduni saying Canucks pretty much have the day off by consensus. No, not this one. We're here every single day, every single weekday during the offseason, keeping you up to date with everything you need to know about the NFL. And, of course, you can follow the footballbettors.com free email newsletter, which is going out consistently. Already 2 editions out this week, more to come as well, especially this week and into next week with the draft less than 7 days away. So we're coming up on that very, very quickly. So the wife is off. She is gone. I don't know where she went. She went out the door. She was onto something with the dog. I'm here live streaming with each and every one of you and wouldn't have it any other way, especially on a Friday in mid-April. To be able to talk football is pretty fantastic. So I'm going to pull up the other sports books that have these prices available right now just to give you some comparison. In most cases, things have moved to match what Circa has posted, or at least where Circa has moved. So a couple things to say before we go. The spoken about limits on these at Circa is about $300. You can rebet them as many times as you want, but Circa has the opportunity to move between the rebets. There were comments in the tweet that I sent out last night saying, should you really believe in these moves? I got a text message from another bettor and said, a lot of PPHs are slow. Should we be tailing these moves? Do you really think that they're sharp? Do you really think that with that low of a limit that people are still betting into it that actually know things? My answer would be, if you think about where Circa is located, if you think about where Circa is now booking in their audience, you think about some of these other places in general, I'm getting comments on tweets of live streams from, I would call, more recreational bettors who are saying, does anyone even care about the NFL draft? Can you bet on the NFL draft? The NFL draft actually has odds. And so my answer to that would be yes, it still does matter, even with the shortened limits, because you have to think about who is going out of their way to bet these things immediately as they open. This is not really a recreational betting event 7 days out from the draft. You're going to see some of that next Wednesday, next Thursday come into the market. It's just, it's not something that's going to draw an average bettor who's betting $25 a game is not running out with a strong opinion on where Armand Membu is going to be drafted. It just isn't really happening a week out. We might see that next week. So that's why my answer would still be yes. I think Circa took some unfair criticism in posting $300 limits. I think we're going to see the limits continue to get smaller and smaller everywhere. It's tough for me to criticize the sportsbook that posts something that they're very, very likely going to lose money on. In the tweet, which was decently popular, there was a comment about how can you take $1,000 bet on blackjack on the floor and then 20 feet away in the sportsbook only take $300 on an NFL draft. And I don't think that that's a fair comparison where one has a built-in house edge and one you're really kind of grasping at info and speculating. It's a very hard thing to set numbers on. And so $300 from Faduni is not quite as sharp, especially Circa moving the numbers from rebets. I think it's a little bit harsh to criticize. I know what you're saying from how they have presented themselves, but it's the reality of the world that we live in. So I think that's what it is for how it kind of stacks up. So I hear it, but I think it's a little bit harsh at the same way. Let's start about the guys who are going up. In other words, their draft position has been bet over. The expectation is that these guys, based on how money has come into the market, are going to go later rather than going earlier based on the posted number. We'll start with Shedeur Sanders. Opened 8.5, minus 380 at Circa, moved out to minus 400. Interestingly enough, still this morning at DK as well as BetOnline, minus 350 showing. You'll see some differences between some of these sports books and Circa currently. I think that's a product of two things. One, there is probably a segment of the audience that cannot bet at Circa, that is betting at these places, but also a segment that doesn't even know that Circa posted their prices. Last year, I believe they went week of, and this year they did go a little bit earlier, that we're seeing that. And that is kind of, I think, dividing things a little bit. So you can still find some of these prices not matching up otherwise. But early money at Circa was on the Sanders over. This opened, if you will remember, last week, I want to say last Tuesday, at DK minus 200 to the over. It is now up as high as minus 400. And I see BetOnline has actually adjusted in the last 25 minutes or so. They are now at minus 400 as well on the over for Shedeur Sanders. That was an 8.5. It was available everywhere. That's what Circa posted, but they went higher in the VIG and it pulled the rest of the market up. DK still a little bit behind. Next one going up was Jackson Dart. Now, I have him been going up because the 21.5 price increased from minus 130 to the over to minus 150. However, there were still a number of sports books at the time that Circa posted that had Dart priced at 24.5. And so they actually came in lower at 21.5. Bit of a difference to look at. I don't know how much it matters because the Steelers are at 21 and the Rams are not until 26. Those are the two teams that have been linked to Dart. At 24.5, he was kind of priced in no man's land between the two. Going to 21.5, considering who's at 22 and 23, probably isn't that valuable. Where I would say there is something to think about is if teams are going to be trading up from the second round to the late first, if Sanders and Ward go early, where is that trade up spot? So there was 24.5 that was posted at a few places. They came out at Circa and posted 21.5. DK is still at 24.5 with the under at minus 155. Circa is at 21.5 with the over at minus 150. So you do have a couple positions difference in the price for Dart, but I don't know how valuable 22, 23, and 24 are for quarterback slots specifically. The question for Dart really is Pittsburgh the taker at 21? How early does Sanders go? Emeka Egbuka, 25.5 over minus 150 to 28.5 under minus 150. So this is something that they posted a lot lower. I was seeing Egbuka everywhere at 29.5 for the majority of the week. It is still 29.5 at DK over at BetOnline. I don't know if they've had him posted. I can't remember off the top of my mind. I think he was kind of a DK only player. Circa posted 25.5 and it was immediately bet over. DK has not come off of the 29.5. They are still holding there right now with his under at minus 160. Circa's at 28.5 with the under at minus 150. When we're looking at this range, 25.5 was right above the Houston slot. And there's Houston obviously tied very strongly to an offensive lineman. But the initial rumors back in February was that this was a great fit for Houston with Egbuka and the Ohio State connection to CJ Stroud and the familiarity. And that was Daniel Jeremiah in the conference call back in February, tying things together. So 25.5 was still bookending that on the high side. Now at 28.5, you're on the other side of Detroit. At 29.5, you're on the other side of Washington. So what do those two teams potentially do? Baltimore and LA in between with both of those. There were some scouting reports that speculated that he is a second round guy. 25.5 up to 28.5, the move on Egbuka. Tyler Warren, 10.5 was his price. This was a unique number. Everywhere else was posting 9.5. There are still 9.5s available. BetOnline has 9.5 over minus 260. DK has 9.5 over minus 240. Circa is at 10.5, and the over went from plus 130 to minus 105. So there was over money even though Circa did go a position higher. I think this is a pretty substantial and notable position higher in the posting, because Chicago has been the one team in the top 10 that's really been tied to Warren. There's also been some Warren hype at 9 recently this week. I believe Evan Silva's mock, if I got it right off the top of my mind, had Warren at number 9. A few others were speculating that the Saints not taking Sanders would go best player available, and speculated that Warren would be BPA at number 9. And so to see 10.5 was a unique number and a unique position taken by Circa. That unique position has been bet over by players at Circa Sports so far. Mike Green, defensive lineman, 17.5. The over at -110 was bet up to -150. This is something that we talked about yesterday. Scouting reports and some scouts off the record through the Bob McGinn previews, who, by the way, has a podcast out through the Go Long Substack this morning. He seldom does podcasts, seldom does media outside of the written format. They have I think it's an hour and a half. So something to look at if you enjoyed the Monday and Tuesday episodes, something that I'm going to look at a little bit later this morning as well, and send some notes out through the Telegram and on Twitter as well. But in the off-the-record scout comments that he was able to acquire, there was concerns about Mike Green's character, the sexual assaults that were not proven by law but were dismissed, some stuff from when he was younger. That allegedly has moved him down draft boards for teams, and with some eliminated him entirely. At 17.5, we've seen this number start to leak a little bit higher. The one team he's really been tied to is Cincinnati. This is a bit of a different one. A lot of guys are being priced the spot lower than where they are expected to go, or like the main team that they're tied to. We'll talk about another one of those in just two minutes. Mike Green is on the high side of Cincinnati, the team where he's expected. So it really becomes a choice, I think, for Green. Is Cincinnati very interested in him? If so, you may like the under. Otherwise, just based on the character, this is a guy that looks like he is going to slide. And an early betting suggests that as well, with over -110 going to 17.5. Jalen Walker, 8.5 over +325 to over +205. So a little bit of over money coming in for Walker. This was a bet that was not posted at BetOnline, a bet that was not posted at DK, and so a unique player and a unique offering at Circa. Bettors at Circa agree that he is going over, at least in the early portion of the betting window. Initial reaction was 8.5 was too short a price, at least at +325, too long of a price to go over, and that has now been bet down to +205. Here's the guy we were talking about where we're seeing the bookend on the low side for a lot of these guys. Jihad Campbell, 18.5. The over, -165, has been bet up at Circa to -235. There have been a ton of ties for Jihad Campbell to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are drafting at number 19. We've just been seeing this a lot with the prices priced on the low side, and it seems like there's some belief that that is reality, especially with the early bettors at Circa, as the over for Campbell has been bet up. We've seen other places that have his price, which have all been 18.5, adjust their numbers. DK now -225 to the over, and other books posting him as well have shaded their prices up to the over as well. So following in the direction of Circa, as Jihad Campbell has been bet up, perhaps buying into the belief that he is going 19 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Malachi Starks, 23.5. This is the same price we've seen Starks posted everywhere. There has been very little movement on Starks at any sports book prior to Circa posting their prices. Circa went over -120 and then was bet up to over -150. Just based on the increments that we have seen some of these prices move at Circa, my guess would be when you're seeing a move the size of 120 to -150 on the VIG, I think that represents one bet. I could be wrong, and that might be two. But just looking at how some of these have moved, Tyler Warren moved a very similar amount. Jackson Dart moved a very similar amount. Shedeur Sanders moved a very similar amount. I get, and I'm speculating here, but I get the impression from the backside of things in the trading room, this is maybe one bet, maybe two. that is causing these moves from perhaps guys who are rated or have played the draft at Circa before. I think that's it. And when you see a move like Igbuka where it's 25.5 to 28.5, that's probably multiple limit bets that have moved it up. But I think a move like this is maybe one or two opinions coming in. This is an interesting opinion on Starks going over because Emanwari has been bet under. So it's probably a correlated opinion or a little bit stronger on Emanwari and then maybe lesser so on Starks, but both being safeties and both being priced in the same range. Maybe a bit of a correlated move there, a correlated adjustment with the positional value of each, and how there's been some comments off the record about safeties not being as valuable, especially in this year's draft class with their sizing and how they're playing. But so far, Starks over -120 to over -150. Those are the guys that have been moving up. Now let's talk about the guys who have been moving down. Most notably, Ashton Genty was 9.5 everywhere. A bet we've talked about making for 13, 14 days here on the live streams. 9.5, the under got bet down from -150 to -280, and Circa came out and posted 6.5 with the under at even money. Very quickly bet to -200 to the under. So not only were they 3 positions lower on a guy that would very likely be BPA for probably a good chunk of those teams in 7, 8, 9, if we're being honest. Not only did they go 3 slots lower, but then the under just got obliterated. So a unique position that they posted on the positional over-under, and then the under just got blasted. And why I think Genty stands out, the big rumors for Genty have been going to the Las Vegas Raiders. Circa is in Las Vegas. They obviously have other states now, but I looked at this as the one that probably stood out the most to me, because there is certainly some local knowledge, whether it be amongst the team at Circa, whether it be amongst the bettors who are in Las Vegas playing. I think that was a very notable move. And to see them go that much lower and then still get bet under was pretty telling. Now, you start to think about some of these and like what would be a fake, what would be real. The reason that I'm downplaying a lot of the fakes, perhaps, at least at this point, is this is the highest limit spot right now for these positional over-unders. Is there perhaps a Genty market that emerges on some of the prediction market platforms and we see substantial volume on there? Perhaps. But I kind of don't buy into a lot of these being fakes just because of the limit structure and how things are posted. So I think this is a genuine opinion being taken by Circa on Genty, and I also think it's a genuine opinion by the bettors being expressed on Genty as well. Fanuni brings up 365 under 9.5 is at -280. I mean, that's a good bet if you can get it still. I don't have 365 up, but that's a good note. We're seeing Genty at 6.5 at DK -150 to the under. BetOnline has moved Genty to, I'm pulling him up right now, 6.5 under -160. So Circa's the high point in this market right now. So a lot to think about with Ashton Genty here. Question from Brandon Shoemaker. Do we know if Jihad Campbell is considered a pure linebacker or edge by the NFL? First pick D-line edge is +155, linebacker +180 at BetOnline. Connor is on top of things in the live chat. Campbell is a linebacker. Campbell is indeed a linebacker. Brandon says, faking draft props at less than a nickel a pop seems like an arduous task. I got that pronunciation. You put me on the spot there. I appreciate it. And that's it. Like, we think about fakes in college basketball and college football and even NFL early. Sunday night, BetOnline, Pinnacle, Circa to an extent with some of the openers. It's 500, it's 1,000, it's 1,500. And you can kind of see that happening on the board. With this and the uncertainty around limits and the account sensitivity and other places being much less, I don't know if I'm buying into a lot of these being set up for something. I will say, as we get to some of these prediction markets opening up and having things into next week with Cam Ward in the top of the market, with probably Travis Hunter we're going to see, and maybe some of the other top guys in the top three with so much uncertainty, we might get an element of something trying to be taken there. Easier said than done with how this is shaping up, but that's where I would see it happening more so than some positional over-unders at this point. Let's keep going with the guys getting bet up as we pull down. Hampton, 20.5 was a unique position. Everywhere on Hampton was 19.5. Bookending on the low side of the Broncos at 20, which were tied to Hampton. Circa went 20.5 under, minus 185. They then moved to 19.5 over, minus 310. So what do you make of the value of number 20 with the Denver Broncos? I don't know how to quantify that. It's clear that that is where Hampton's being moved around. DK 19.5 over, minus 250 is the current price for 19.5. BetOnline 19.5 over, minus 300. So interesting in the way that there was probably an under bet that needed to move this down. So there was probably an opinion being taken at Circa that there was real interest by the Denver Broncos at 20. And the rumor that's very widespread and available amongst everywhere is someone at Circa was buying into that likely led to betting the under. But if this was never posted at 20.5 and we didn't see this move and it was 19.5, I think the widespread speculation has been that Hampton is sliding deeper into the first round. There were some ties to Kansas City from some commentary. I think Matt Miller, I believe Daniel Jeremiah, Todd McShay earlier in the week from that pod that there was Hampton sliding a little bit later, some interest from the Chiefs. How late is he going to go? Did the Broncos go wide receiver? That's all kind of been swirling around. And at 19.5, we've seen Hampton's price being bet up. It's interesting to see an opinion taken on the other side of that, even if it is just one bet at 20.5 at minus 185 on the under to move it back to 19.5. Matthew Golden, 18.5 to 16.5, under minus 110 to 16.5, under plus 110. 18.5 I have starred because it was 17.5 everywhere at the time that Circa posted. So they went a slot higher and then got bet to the point where they moved it 2 slots lower. The biggest hype that I have seen on Twitter in the last 24 hours has been Matthew Golden to be the first wide receiver drafted who is not Travis Hunter. That's specified in some markets, even though Hunter's classified as a corner. But basically, Golden to be bet ahead of Ted McMillan. I've seen that from a couple different sites and a couple different shows. Perhaps that is tying into Golden being bet down. Ted McMillan was posted at 18.5. This was the only place I have seen McMillan posted. 18.5 under minus 130, moved to minus 175. How do you decipher the difference between 16.5 under plus 110 compared to 18.5 under minus 175? That, to me, kind of have both of these guys priced effectively the same. But you look at some of the first picked markets, Ted McMillan minus 230 to be the first wide receiver selected. Again, those don't count for Travis Hunter. Some places will specify it, but he's a CB. And then at BetOnline, Ted is minus 190, Matthew Golden plus 105, plus 150 at DK. It's how you want to look at it. I mean, you might have a very strong opinion on the positional totals, but if you think Golden is an under at 16.5, you're probably better off taking him first wide receiver at plus 150. If you think Tet is an under or he's the first wide receiver to go, you're probably better betting under 18.5 minus 175 than you are betting minus 230 to be the first wide receiver selected. That would be my thoughts on that. Colston Loveland, 17.5 under minus 120 to minus 185. The 19.5s that were available last week that we were talking about are long gone. BetOnline, 18.5 under minus 275. DK currently this morning for Loveland, 18.5 under minus 250. So Circa is the low point in the market on Colston Loveland with the lowest price with almost equivalent minus 185. I shouldn't say almost equivalent as we see minus 250 elsewhere. But 17.5 under minus 185. The lowest price in the market on Loveland is now available at Circa. Michael Williams, 15.5, under -215 to under -300. A guy that's been labeled to have top 10 upside, top 10 talent, and just some concerns about how last year finished for him perhaps prematurely dropped him down. We're seeing a strong support in the market for Williams unders, and this -300 price at 15.5 matches what is available at DK. BetOnline actually higher, 15.5 under -325. Jahdae Barron. This one's making me sweat a little. Didn't love to see Silva's mock draft having him going number 5. So much news about him sliding into the 20s. We're seeing that kind of go back the other way now. 18.5 under +150 to +110. So some resistance here on Barron going under. Interesting pricing when you're looking at DK. Under 18.5 +175. So a pretty substantial difference between the two. And we're looking at BetOnline under 18.5 +160. So a pretty unique opinion on the Barron under the Circa. When you're thinking about the over at DK at 18.5 is -220. At BetOnline, Barron's over is still -230. So Barron over is actually the highest price in market at BetOnline. The under is most expensive at Circa. So big difference of opinion on where Jahdae Barron is going to go. Nick Manwari, 23.5 under +140 to -105. This is very much indicating that he is going to go ahead of Malachi Starks, both priced at 23.5. Both play the same position. Starks going up, Barron going down so far. Barron's are Manwari and Starks. The difference between the two, Starks had just glowing praise in the scouts commentary off the record, loved by everybody. Manwari has the potential to be playing more in the box, linebacker, moved around. So some differences between the two and how they're viewed. I think that becomes more of just a positional fit for what you're looking at. Green Bay, certainly a candidate perhaps at 23. Minnesota, a candidate at 24. Both of these guys right in range at those two numbers. If you don't think Pittsburgh goes quarterback, then perhaps you're looking at some positional value and safety there with the Steelers at 21. But under money on Manwari, over money on Starks. 3 guys that have been static. Armand Membu, 6.5, over -410. That has not moved. Mason Graham, 5.5, under -155. And Will Johnson, 12.5, over -215. They're the only place to have a price on Johnson. Membu and Graham are both priced similarly at other sports books, as there seems to be a little bit of a shift in opinion on Membu because of a Schefter tweet, because of a SpyTech interview. I don't know if I'm buying that Raiders Membu at 6. I look at the Raiders stuff. Is Pete Carroll at 75 with a 35-year-old quarterback and everything they're saying, like, are they really going to pass up Genty at 6 if he is there and go with Membu? If Genty goes earlier and Membu's available at 6, maybe that changes the definition of it. But if both these guys are available, I just have a hard time buying into Membu being the pick there at 6. And there's been 2 months of evidence to point towards Genty. There's been 30 hours of some evidence to point to Membu. I don't know. So that's changed. DK over 6.5, -350. BetOnline for Membu is at Dave's got to get the menu sorted at BetOnline. We're not even in alphabetical. We're not even in market specifics. Membu is at -400 at BetOnline currently. Mason Graham at 5. We've talked about him a few days in a row now. It's like everybody thinks he's guaranteed to go to the Jags. There's almost as much certainty in some of these mocks that Graham is going 5 to the Jags as there is Ward is going 1 to the Titans. So I don't know what to make of that, but he seems like the guy, if you're looking to either like avoid or pivot in some of these, that you're kind of pegging him in a way as the guy that's going to go a little bit different. And so he's the one that kind of falls down where if there's going to be a shift in the top 5, it's probably going to be him. But it's tough to find a lot of evidence to the other side. Another one we talked about yesterday, Travis Hunter at minus 330 to go number 2 overall. If you bet that yesterday during the live stream, you're in a pretty good spot. He's now minus 800 to go number 2 overall at DK. That price has been going up as we kind of speculated yesterday on the show was going to go one way. Nothing with Cam Ward anywhere. His price basically locked in. And then other than that, I think this is probably the extent of guys we're going to see posted for a lot of the draft markets. And so I hope that these shows have got everybody to a point where you kind of have a good idea of how these guys have been moving, what the rumors are, both high and low, how these guys have got to where they are price-wise, as we've hopefully done a decent job covering things overall so far to get you to this point. Brad Kyler, hopefully I'm saying that right, is Rask going to have official draft releases? I can't imagine that being the case. I don't want to speak too early, though, but I don't believe so, just with the way things are shaping up. We will have some more NFL stuff probably announced later next week, but I don't think we'll be sending out anything draft-wise. Connor, do you think liquidity is so low that 1 or 2 max bets moves lines? 1 or 2 max bets moves lines on NFL game weeks during the regular season. So in a draft market where we are seeing it entirely info-based, and I think that there's a lot of fear from the bookmaking side, absolutely, I would see this on 1 or 2 bets moving things, no question about it, with the lower liquidity. Brandt asks, no concern with Colton Miller holdout potential trade news, which could lead to some value on Raiders to draft a tackle at 6. I don't know if Pete, in this time of his career and age and the way that this team is building, that they would pass on a guy like Genty. I mean, everything that they have done since taking over suggests win now. Is Membu going to be a difference maker at right tackle that allows them to compete with the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Broncos and their division to have a chance at a wild card berth? I mean, maybe long term, but Genty gives you that option now. And I just have a hard time buying into Pete Carroll sitting there. Put yourself in Pete Carroll's shoes. You're 75. What do you have left? 3 years? Maybe 4. You're sitting in the draft room and you're looking at your depth chart on one hand, and you're like, all right, running back number 1, Raheem Mostert. Deep down in your core, you love to run the football. I mean, it's what you've based your entire career on. And you're trusting Raheem Mostert to go into the season as running back 1 and compete in the AFC West? Like, I don't know. I just have a hard time buying into that story. Whereas I can put myself in Pete Carroll's shoes, and you have this ridiculous prospect that's probably the best running back since Saquon Barkley coming out of college. And I get that the pieces up front might not be finished, and that might limit him. But I'm putting myself in that position saying, like, that's the guy I want to be a difference maker, to have any chance of competing with the Chargers or Broncos or Chiefs in this division. If we don't take him and we go into the season with Raheem Mostert, like what's our ceiling there? I don't think it's very high. So that's the only reason I'm kind of dismissing some of this Membu hype that's circled in the last 36, 48 hours. Like, you kind of have to take some chances here to load up to have any option to compete in that division. I mean, they're in division hell for as long as Pete Carroll is going to be coaching the rest of his career. I don't know if they don't take the shot. Connor asked, any team you could see trading up or down in the top half of the draft? Haven't seen any trade rumors. I saw one today from Matt Miller saying that he's heard the Chiefs are going to try trade up to get an offensive tackle somewhere in the early 20s. I don't know if I'm buying that, because I also saw Matt Verderam yesterday say they want to take a defensive lineman. So Chiefs have been discussed about a lot of trades. I've heard Eagles trade stuff. I've heard Rams trade stuff. In terms of the top half, I think you'd have a lot of teams interested in trading back given the draft class, but I don't know who's a trade candidate in that top half. I would say that a lot of teams that presented with it would be willing to move back to get some more capital. Another popular trade rumor has been some of these top teams trading back from the second round, Cleveland, New York, into late first round to get the quarterback. If they go Hunter, Carter, coming back to get a QB later in the first round has been a trade scenario I've heard of as well. But other than that, I haven't heard a whole lot. I'm with you. Trade stuff is so hard because it changes so quickly late. I don't really pay like a ton of attention to it. It's kind of really hard to predict and really hard to project. So I don't have much there for you. Brandon's still pumped about Golden first wide receiver being the play. Plus 150 is still out there. Is it going to come in by the time we're talking Monday morning? We will see. If you have any final questions, get them in to wrap up the week. No show Saturday, no show Sunday. We'll be here bright and early Monday morning, same time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Oddslogic.com. You can use RAS for a free 7-day trial. What a weekend to be using it if you haven't used it. With playoffs starting, you have play-in tournament, you have full slates of baseball, day games, alerts, injuries, sportsbook coverage, all extremely fast. Desktop, mobile, Mac, Windows, everything that you want from a odds comparison product for 1/5 of the price after the trial. And if you don't believe it's as good as the competing products, you can try it out for free. RAS is the free 7-day trial promo code, oddslogic.com. And if you have yet to sign up at footballbettors.com, it is the free email newsletter that will keep you up to date with everything you need to know about the NFL during the offseason. 2 editions out already this week. More to come between now and draft day. Connor says, thanks for the insight. Have a good weekend. I will say have a good weekend for each and every one of you as well. Enjoy Saturday. Enjoy Sunday. Enjoy the rest of Friday. If it's a long weekend for you, have a fantastic long weekend as well. We'll chat with each and every one of you back here again bright and early Monday morning, 11 a.m., 8 a.m. Pacific time. Chat to you then.